Throughout history, a silent thread of darkness weaves beneath our feet, hidden under temples and altars, buried in corrupted scriptures and guarded by those in power. From ancient pyramids to modern halls, the same beings, the same demands, the same innocent victims. The names change, but the appetite remains. What if humanity's greatest deception is a deliberate inversion of truth? What if the gods who demanded innocence were never gods, but fallen beings still among us? And what if the only way to expose this darkness is through the eyes of the one who ended all sacrifice? This is the story of humanity's oldest war, still raging, unseen, and the one voice powerful enough to break its cycle. In the valley of Hinnom, near ancient Jerusalem, bronze idols to Molech stood, massive statues with outstretched, glowing arms. Drums thundered, drowning out cries as parents placed infants onto the blazing hands, believing sacrifice would bring prosperity or victory. The Phoenicians carried this practice west, bringing Baal Hammon worship to colonies like Carthage. Archaeologists uncovered Tophets, mass graves filled with urns containing charred remains of infants and children. Inscriptions at these sites speak of vows fulfilled through the death of the innocent. Canaanite and Phoenician sites feature massive stone structures, built with such precision that even modern technology struggles to match it. Seamlessly joined stones reveal advanced knowledge beyond their known technology. Altars and temples aligned with celestial events suggest rituals guided by mysterious intelligence. Prominent snake carvings symbolized hidden wisdom, linking these rituals to an ancient, sinister source. In Rome, Saturn's worship cloaked older rituals. Myths of Saturn devouring his children became part of Rome's tapestry. These symbolic images echo disturbing practices inherited from Carthage. Saturn's festivals, with their moral inversions, masked ancient blood-soaked truths beneath Rome's surface. Roman temples to Saturn used mathematically precise stonework, reflecting Carthaginian architecture, another sign of shared origins. Festivals featured dolls or effigies, echoing ancient child offerings beneath ritual playfulness. In the Aztec Empire, priests selected children as offerings to Tlaloc, god of rain. Rituals made them weep, their tears symbolizing rainfall. Atop pyramid altars aligned with the stars, their hearts were removed, offered to sustain the cosmic order. Aztec pyramids mirrored ancient Middle Eastern ziggurats, their steps aligned to stars and sun, harnessing cosmic forces. Temples featured serpent carvings, symbols of divine wisdom and blood sacrifice. Recent excavations found Mercury pools beneath temples, matching ancient Chinese burial practices. High in the Andes, Inca priests chose flawless children for sacrifice. Drugged and adorned with precious metals, they were taken to mountaintop shrines. There, among cinnabar stones, they perished, offered to Inti, the sun god, to sustain the empire's prosperity. The Inca built impossibly precise megalithic walls, seamless, mortarless, and earthquake-proof. Ritual spaces held cinnabar, like sites in China and Mesoamerica, hinting at shared knowledge. Temples and shrines aligned with solar and stellar events, guiding the timing of sacrifices. Oracle bones from China's Shang dynasty reveal rituals involving child sacrifice as part of divination. Centuries later, Emperor Qin Shi Huang's tomb featured underground rivers of Mercury, guarded by traps and reportedly human sacrifices, including children, to protect the emperor's afterlife. Liquid mercury rivers beneath Qin's tomb mirror practices found in Mesoamerican and Andean cultures. These rivers symbolized immortality, power, and divine knowledge, another strange global parallel that's hard to ignore. The tomb complex featured monolithic stonework, massive stones polished and fitted so seamlessly they defy contemporary explanation. It suggests technology far beyond what we typically attribute to the Qin era. In feudal Japan, a grim practice called hitobashira, or human pillars, involved the ritual burying of people alive within the foundations of castles, bridges, and dams. These sacrifices were believed to appease water spirits and ensure structural safety and protection. Foundations containing sacrificed individuals. Now, this is fascinating. Parallel Mesopotamian and European foundation sacrifices, pointing toward a kind of universally recognized spiritual technology. Temples and bridges, especially those built above water, often used serpent motifs. Again, the serpent image ties to child offerings and ritual protection across disparate cultures. These are not coincidences. The architecture, precise, aligned with stars, the presence of Mercury, cinnabar and serpent symbols across continents speaks of a shared legacy, a single thread woven through humanity's dark spiritual history. They were not just ancient gods, they were beings with a common purpose, demanding sacrifice. This repetition, echoed through cultures, could never arise from chance. This is evidence, etched in stone, preserved beneath history, of a singular influence. They are the fallen, and they never changed what they demanded from humanity. Many believe the rituals we discussed vanished with ancient civilizations, that the horrors atop pyramids and within temples belong to humanity's distant past. But the truth is darker. The patterns never truly ended, they adapted, moving underground, hidden behind modern institutions and within contemporary crises. The masks changed, the names evolved, but the victims, the innocent children, remained tragically consistent. These old gods did not vanish, they rebranded, embedding themselves deeper into society, always shielded, always protected. The immigration crisis and missing children, from 2015 to now, thousands of children fleeing violence and poverty in Central America and the Middle East have vanished after crossing borders in recent years. Many minors are listed as lost or unaccounted for within government systems. Despite congressional inquiries and media attention, many remain missing, their fates unresolved. Like ancient rituals, these children often vanish amid chaos and desperation, their absence lost in bureaucratic confusion. Facilities holding these minors, run by government and private entities, show disturbing abuse allegations and little oversight, echoing ancient temples where victims awaited sacrifice behind closed doors. Reports of sponsors taking children without proper vetting mirror ancient practices of ritualized transfer into powerful hands. War has always provided cover for evil acts. In Ukraine and Gaza, humanitarian groups report many children disappearing during evacuations or in refugee camps. Amid bombings and forced displacements, these children vanish, leaving grieving families and haunting unanswered questions. War zones have long been fertile ground for human trafficking. Behind the chaos, children are abducted for unknown reasons. Humanitarian groups highlight suspicious activity at orphanages and refugee centers, but investigations rarely yield answers, suggesting troubling complicity or oversight. As ancient civilizations sacrificed war captives, modern conflicts enable the disappearance of innocent children for sinister, unknown purposes. One of the most disturbing continuities is the pattern of institutions shielding abusers. Churches, governments and agencies meant to protect have repeatedly been exposed as protectors of perpetrators. Thousands of documented cases of priests abusing minors were covered up by church hierarchy, moving offenders between parishes. This echoes ancient religious authorities cloaking abuses within spiritual authority, placing perpetrators above accountability, a fallen strategy manipulating faith for power. Victims and whistleblowers report that powerful global networks shield child traffickers and abusers. High-profile cases like Jeffrey Epstein's reveal protection by political elites and intelligence agencies. His private island had ritualistic architecture, a blue-striped temple with a golden dome and owl statues, checkerboard floors and patterns found in ancient temples. This continuity is deliberate. Investigations stall, evidence vanishes, and whistleblowers are silenced, echoing ancient secret rituals protected by elites. In 1954, President Eisenhower allegedly made a secret agreement with extraterrestrials, reportedly allowing them to abduct humans, mainly children, in exchange for advanced technology. After this agreement, reports of missing children surged worldwide. Authorities dismissed these claims as conspiracy, but the numbers and patterns persist. Modern UFO sightings often occur near water, echoing ancient water spirit worship. Ancient legends of gods entering and leaving water are now mirrored by modern accounts of unidentified craft vanishing into oceans and lakes. Powerful institutions use symbols, owls, spirals, Saturn, echoing ancient rites. Bohemian Grove's owl statue, linked to rituals mimicking child sacrifice, and Epstein's owl symbolism connect modern elites to ancient Molech worship. Saturn worship symbols are common in corporate and entertainment circles, reflecting ancient Saturnalia rituals involving sacrifice. Red shoes and spiral motifs, historically tied to ritual sacrifice, still appear among elites, hinting at hidden allegiances or rituals today. Ancient sites of child sacrifice, Aztec pyramids, Incan shrines, Qin Shi Huang's tomb, featured architecture impossible to replicate today. Seamless stonework, celestial alignments, and Mercury pools reveal knowledge beyond ancient capabilities. Structures in South America, Egypt, China, and Mesoamerica share strikingly similar construction. Massive stones cut and assembled with laser-like precision and aligned to solstices and stars. Mercury pools beneath temples in China and Mesoamerica suggest shared ritual and technological knowledge, pointing to a common source of advanced wisdom. These features were more than decorative. They harnessed energy and symbolized power, just as modern elite architecture does with symbolic patterns. These modern parallels are not mere coincidence. They are deliberate continuations of an ancient spiritual war. The same fallen beings who once demanded sacrifice atop pyramids have adapted, embedding themselves in today's institutions, their demands now hidden but just as insidious. The masks have shifted, the names changed, but their appetite for innocence remains. This isn't legend, it's a persistent reality, hidden in plain sight, cloaked in silence and power. This reality calls us to discernment, to recognize the patterns and the symbols, and to understand the old gods are not dead. They've only learned to hide. Saturn, the god who devoured his children, gave way to saints and sacraments, but the robes remained, the altars remained. Even the title Pontifex Maximus, once the high priest of pagan Rome, was inherited by the popes. In Catholic Mass, Christ is sacrificed over and over on the altar, mirroring the repeated blood rituals of the old gods. Communion becomes the flesh and blood of the divine. The pattern echoes too perfectly. The veneration of Mary as Queen of Heaven mirrors the ancient mother goddess cults, goddesses who were worshipped through the sacrifice of children. In Jeremiah, God condemns the Queen of Heaven and those who offer to her, yet today she's crowned with that very title. Even beneath the altars, the bones remain, a requirement for consecration. The dead must sanctify the sacred space, just as they did in pagan rites. And the darkest echo of all is what the Church has done to children in secret, for decades, systemically, globally, covered up, protected. Christ said, "Let the children come to me." They say, "Bring them to the altar." This is not his church, it is the church of the fallen, built on the ashes of the old gods, and it still smells of blood. Folklore wasn't lying. They say it was just to scare the children. Stories of dark forests, shadowy men, creatures that waited at the edge of the village, the firefly that led you too far, the woman who sang from the river, the figure in the woods that called you by name. But what if the stories weren't fiction? What if they were memory? Across cultures and centuries, the warnings repeat. In Germany, the Pied Piper of Hamelin, dressed in bright colours, playing music that enchanted the town's youth, led the children into a cave, never to return. History calls it a myth, but Hamelin records list the date, June 26, 1284. Over 130 children vanished. No ransom, no remains, just music and disappearance. In the shadows of every culture is a name parents whisper to warn their children: the boogeyman. a shapeless figure that waits under beds or behind doors, punishing disobedient children. But in many early European and Middle Eastern variations, the boogeyman wasn't just a fear. It was a person, a priest, a noble, a traveller, someone real, someone the town couldn't stop. These weren't bedtime tales, they were survival codes, warnings passed down in rhyme and rhythm to protect the innocent from the predators society wouldn't name. Today, we dismiss them as superstition, but children are still disappearing into war zones, into networks, into silence. We call it abduction. The old world called it sacrifice. And they remembered what we forgot. The monsters were real. They just learned how to wear suits. They say America abolished child sacrifice centuries ago, but the silence of its forests, its churches and its government files tells another story. For more than 100 years, native children were taken from their families, placed into government and church-run boarding schools. There they were stripped of language, identity and often life itself. Mass graves have been uncovered, unmarked, unrecorded. Bones of children buried beneath school grounds, many never reported missing. This wasn't just cultural erasure, it was physical, spiritual, systemic. Orphan trains carried tens of thousands of children across the country between the 1850s and 1900s. Many were never heard from again. Labelled foundlings or wards of the state, these children were placed into homes, labour camps and institutions with little to no oversight. And the pattern repeated. Boys Town, the Franklin scandal, the Catholic orphanages. Time after time, accusations of abuse and trafficking emerged from systems meant to protect. These were not isolated failures, they were pipelines. Pipelines that removed children from the protection of family, placed them into the hands of trusted institutions, and then disappeared them into silence. And today, we see it again. Children crossing borders, placed in government facilities, later declared missing. Children in foster care unaccounted for, children in war zones like Ukraine and Gaza vanishing without a trace. Across time, across continents, the formula does not change. Take the child, break the family, claim authority, and feed the system. This is not compassion, it is not progress. It is the same ancient offering, just done in the dark. The fallen have always demanded sacrifice, blood, innocence. The US dollar hides it in plain sight. In its upper right corner, a tiny owl, long associated with Molech and elite ritual, sits perched on the architecture of empire. It's not just currency, it's a covenant with the old gods, stamped on every transaction. But the true God, revealed through Christ, offers the opposite. Where the fallen took life, Christ gave his own. Where the fallen corrupted innocence, Christ protected it. Christ's arrival inverted the fallen's message, revealing the heart of God's true character. When Christ walked the earth, he honored and protected children, declaring their spiritual worth. His words were a radical realignment toward innocence, purity, and humility. Matthew 19, verse 14, Jesus said, "Let the children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these." This was a direct rebuke to the ancient gods who demanded children's lives. Mark 9, verse 42. "Whoever causes one of these little ones to stumble, it would be better for him if a heavy millstone were hung around his neck and he were thrown into the sea." These words marked a divine boundary against harm to innocence, an unambiguous stance against abuse and exploitation. Yet the fallen were cunning. Their deception infiltrated sacred texts, subtly twisting portrayals of God, crafting narratives of a deity demanding violence, vengeance and sacrifice opposite the character Christ revealed. Some Old Testament texts suggest God commanded wars, violence, and even the deaths of innocents. But if Christ reveals the Father, any depiction contradicting Christ's compassion and protection of innocence shows corruption, distortion by fallen influences. Jeremiah 7:31 condemns child sacrifice. "They built high places to burn their sons and daughters, something I did not command, nor did it enter my mind." Yet some texts claim divine approval of violence. These contradictions reveal tampering, a calculated deception meant to mislead. Christ didn't just teach about God, He revealed God's true nature. Through his actions and words, we see God protects the innocent, calls for humility, and does not demand the sacrifice of others, but instead willingly sacrifices himself for us. Anyone who has seen me has seen the Father. Christ embodied self-sacrifice, love, forgiveness, and compassion, countering every claim by fallen beings masquerading as gods. On the cross, Christ's words, "Father, forgive them," inverted the fallen's narrative of vengeance and bloodshed. His sacrifice ended all sacrifices, revealing a God who suffers with and for humanity, not one who demands their suffering. Even today, distortions persist. Institutions claiming Christ's authority conceal abuse, corruption, and violence. Leaders shield perpetrators, governments silence victims, and elites use rituals of power reminiscent of ancient rites. The true gospel calls us from corrupted institutions and false narratives. Where the fallen seek power, Christ offers humility. Where they demand control, he grants freedom and sheds his own blood. The call now is clear: discernment. Symbols, rituals, and architecture remain, pointing to fallen influences throughout history. Yet Christ's call is clearer. His true character shines in scripture, history, and lived experience. Any institution or belief claiming Christ but justifying harm, abuse, or violence is a distortion, crafted by the same fallen beings. The authentic gospel stands firm, centered on Christ's compassion, sacrifice, and protection of the innocent. This is the ultimate test of truth and discernment. The fallen demand sacrifice. Christ sacrificed for you. The fallen seek innocence to exploit. Christ protects and restores innocence. This is the inversion of the gospel, the true revelation of God's heart. The war is ancient, ongoing, but its outcome is certain. Christ's victory at the cross is complete. Evil's patterns persist, but the light of truth remains. Choose discernment. Choose compassion. Choose Christ. Take heart, for I have overcome the world. John 16:33.